Universe. It's Caner Tip Tuesday, an exciting 3-part series we start today on CaneFlow Self Defense Applications. Before we do that, a warm welcome to those of you who, well, you may have been browsing, doing a little research on Cane Self Defense. What is this thing? And you landed here, so a big Cane bump to you. And those of you who have been faithful followers of the Cane Fist Way, thank you so much. And the first thing we want to do is, if you haven't done this already, if you like the content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss any future content. Avail yourself now of the no-cost Cane Clarity Call. Doesn't matter where you are in the timeline. Oh, you're new, perfect. Oh, I'm an experienced instructor, but I want to, perfect. Go ahead and text the letter CCC to 305-745-7839. In less than 24 hours, we will be on a call with you, customizing your plan, listening to what is important to you and what interests you about this Cane self-defense, so that you can actually have all your questions answered. You get it right from the onset. Save yourself time, funds, and frustration. CaneFlow is easily the most understood aspect of American cane self-defense. And for those of you that don't know, so you see the movement and they're standing over here and handling that cane, and you see a lot of movement, and it looks like what we affectionately refer to as the dance. And so others are looking at that from the outside and they say, well, that's great. You know, you have good movement and good handling skills, but how does that translate over to self-defense? And that's what this 3-part series is about. And it's interesting, we did a survey as to what our caners, and this was in-house, what do you want to see more of? And in particular, for our live hands-on training, I'll talk about that, our immersion trainings here at the headquarters. And you know, one caner said, my interest lies with CaneFlow, because if I understand the flow, everything else will be revealed. And I have to admit that is accurate. CaneFlow, what is it? Let's have a conversation about that. Essentially, it is a movement-based discipline of coordination, which teaches the tactical concepts of ACSD. It is not scripted. So that's why I always say that ACSD CaneFlow comes from the heart. That doesn't mean anything to a lot of people, but what that means is that once you have that alphabet down, you're going to start putting words and you're going to start putting sentences and compositions together, because ultimately, ACSD caning is about you. It's not Joe Robaina's or Coach Doc or Coach Herring or Coach Ron. It's essentially your caning based on what you can do and how you want to move, and taking into consideration any physical limitations that you have. So that's a conversation, but let's actually take a look at it. In this first part, I'm going to take something that just about anybody who picks up a cane sooner or later is going to come up, is going to come to what is referred to as figure eights. And a lot of times you'll see it here. And this is figure eights being done from the horn and crook. Somebody as ACSD is known for doing, well, not just that obviously, but a lot of figure eights from the shaft. Why from the shaft? Horn, by the way, horn, crook, so that we're on the same page. The nomenclature, horn, crook. Okay, as you hear people on the handle. Technically, it's the horn and crook, and this would be the shaft. So figure eights from here. Why would you go from the shaft? If you've ever made contact with one of these while you're doing that, you have a better grip and you can hang on to that cane better. The movement is essentially composed of 2 shots in the ACSD, what we refer to as power shots. It's a number 1 and a number 5. And without movement, it looks this way. Notice that it's not all over the place. And they are what? Essentially power shots. Why do I say that? And Kiko here is going to help me out today. But there's a wonderful segment that I plan on using with one of our advanced caners, Jonathan Altman. Hey, Jonathan, if you're watching, love you, brother. Knife. And they're actual shots. So when you're doing this, you're not doing this just regardless of what it looks like in the flow. Regardless, they are actual power shots coming through. This is important because if you try to take it as just hey, I'm just doing this movement here. When you're dealing with something like this, that is not enough for him to gain his respect, and he's going to come right through there. And that's what that segment showed here live at Immersion. However, with a little coach and just bringing and saying, hey, you're doing a 1 and a 2, the mentality comes, back off, back off, back off, is to just overwhelm him. You have the longer tool. And if he does stick his hand in here, figure 8 should be like a 3-dimensional, it's a propeller that's coming, an airplane propeller that's coming at you. If you stick your hand in there, you're gonna get cracked, or anything else for that matter. So the first thing in terms of application is, yeah, it shows you how to maintain that distance. Now, notice that in the footwork, and I'm gonna pick one footwork, and there are many, I'm just moving forward and back in here. And ACSD Masters, you're currently doing something like that. And this is footwork. The handling, I'm showing you different handling in here because it's irrelevant what I'm doing here with the hands. Just notice that it's all tight in the guard zone, in my guard zone. But this back and forth movement that is rhythmic like a wave going back and forth, and that has a ton of health benefits, which is one of the components of CaneFlow, is also teaching you, I always say, footwork gets you in and out of trouble. It gets you in trouble if you're not respecting the angles correctly. So now take this here and come with an overhead shot, Kiko. So if I think I'm getting out of the way, and I got out of the way, but I didn't really get out of the way, I'm still getting cracked here. And so the movement when he comes in shows you it's already has that built in to it. Not just with that, but with any tool that you might have. So that movement carries over, right? So cane, impact tool, knife, blade, mass separator. You can see how something like that might, come into play, right, when you're doing something like this. It also teaches you base there, it teaches you the empty hand movement. And what that means is that if I'm dealing here, right, if you look at it, ACSD is in essence, when it comes to the empty hand, a hammer fist and a palm heel and a clawing movement. There's a reason for that, so that you don't damage the fist, especially if you don't have it conditioned. But when he reaches out with whatever it is, here you are knocking shots down. So it's showing you the movement, whether it be here or here, and I can do this either advancing towards it, but I can do it also retreating with either hand, right? And it keeps my hand. So this movement, you're gonna be using it. It also shows you, so it's got a striking component, right? The obvious striking component, maximizing the use of the tool. But it goes way beyond that. There's so much. I can teach a whole seminar just on figure 8 striking and the striking rate. If I come in here and he stops this strike, because I came out, it also shows you the movement. Look at him from this side. So if I'm coming in here and he stops this and I'm to the outside, it shows me how I follow through to actually lock that up in this figure 8. If I come to the other side and he stops it there, that's my pattern. So this is already built in there as well, on how to keep this tight, how to keep it tight. Notice, don't move. It's not out here. This is so important because when you are off of that triangulation angle, you can overpower him here, but it's not the same. Watch what happens. Look at his body. Watch what happens when I walk back to where I should be. See how it just locks up the entire spine. And that, of course, transfers over to that empty hand, so that if I'm caught over here, well, that's not where I should be. That punch is coming, right? That locks him up. If I'm coming through here, same thing. I can lock up from here. It's showing me that movement. It's showing me, put that right back, that movement. If he comes to strike with that other hand, so it has that component just off of this coming in and out. If you were to get stopped from here, come, I'll show it, and you did something like this, right, which is not a good, he gets to see that from a mile away. Well, I'm out here, that's not where I should be. Both of his hands are committed. Even if I don't have that other hand, when I stick to the principles, when you're doing, look at how it cuts, and I get to go right through there. So figure 8s looked at like that are not just what it seems. It's teaching you components of tactical self-protection with the tool. What differentiates it from everything else, pay attention now, that you might see out there that shows some type of handling, maybe coming from another tool, like a longer bow, right? Or a baton, or something like that, is the very specific tactical application. And all ACSD coaches know this and have to be able to do that. They are the guardians. You, the coaches, ACSD coaches, are the guardians of making sure that that component of tactical application is never lost. I can teach a class, you can teach a class, depending on who your audience is, just on movement alone. Because this rhythmic movement, this flow, it's very difficult to move in a flow the way that we teach and still stay stuck in that emotion of anger and that emotion where you're dragging your feet, you're depressed and all that. We don't make medical claims, but we know that good things happen when you start to move in what is typical. That CaneFlow circulation starts moving, oxygenation improves. So it has a lot of benefits. You can teach a class with that focus and never reveal what the tactical application of it is. But you have to always be able to do that, because the minute you extract that from ACSD CaneFlow, it becomes something else. And the caner that knows the how is always going to be a student of the caner that knows the why. And so today we looked at figure eights off of a CaneFlow. Come in, make sure to tune in next week, because I'm going to show you another component of it. It's a 3-part series that we're doing with it. And if you're sitting there wondering, I don't know that I can move like that, I don't know that I can do that, you need to make that call. CCC, right? It doesn't cost you a penny to do it. To learn how it is that we take these principles and we meet you right where you're at. We meet you right where you're at, for the simple reason that criminals don't care, and that your health, your mental, this body that you were given here on God's green earth matters. It is important, and we'll have a conversation, show you how we address that. But there's a step-by-step. But see, even just this that I showed you, there is a way of learning this. There's a lot of detail here that I don't have the time to get into, okay? Guys, as always, I'm Joe Robaina for American Cane Self Defense. Thanks for watching. Keep caning. Thanks.